Just want to let everyone know if you are joining for the first time, we have monthly office hours dedicated to customers in our APAC region. That's on the second Wednesday of every month from 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific time. And then we do have a weekly office hours as well for those in US and EMEA. In between our office hours, we go through and triage our GitHub discussions and go through Discord on a daily basis. And so if you do have questions or items that come up outside of the office hours, don't feel like you have to wait for the next meeting to reach out and talk with us, as we have a number of mechanisms to be able to engage as well. So there's a lot of updates that I want to cover and go through. The first one, we've had a number of Python releases since we last met. The big one that I want to highlight is there's a lot of changes in 1.27.0. There are a couple of smaller releases. So the one that's highlighted on screen is 1.27.2. There are some improvements for the plan and execution sample that Evan's gone through and done as well. But Evan, is there anything for either this release or 1.27.0 that you want to highlight to the audience?
Hi there. Yeah, sure. I think the biggest thing is just that in 1.27.0, we went to GA with our single agent abstractions. So we're confident, in the API surface that we've made available that should stick and be non-breaking going forward, which means then we can iterate on it and provide improvements. We introduced very quickly a couple weeks before this common agent invocation API abstraction that brings an agent thread, even for things like chat completion agent and other agents that already use thread. But that abstraction now will allow us to build on in new concepts like working with memory and ways to serialize things out to data stores, Cosmos DB, AS Search, and stuff. So that kind of paves the way for some future work. And from then it's just been some fixes, getting all that out the door and making sure that it's stable. So I think that sums it up for now.
Perfect. Thanks, Evan. Any questions for Evan as we have him as well for any of our latest Python releases that we've had? If not, I'll go on to .NET, but feel free to put questions in chat or come off of mute as well. The version for .NET 1.45.0, there are a couple of small changes that I want to highlight as well. There's an MCP prompt sample that's now merged in, and I'll be covering a couple of updates around MCP, as well as there were some detailed demos in this morning's office hours. I'll have the recording out for shortly as well. There were a couple of bug fixes and being able to go through and mark the chat history agent as experimental as well. And so some great things that are coming out of .NET if you haven't had a chance to look at the latest release. So I want to highlight, we've had a lot of recent blog posts. We've actually gone through and added a guest blog from Arafat. I know that he usually is able to join. He did a great deep dive of agentic AI, an overview all up. He'll have a part two that I'll be releasing out shortly as well. And so lots of great goodness from both our external customers, guest blogs, and a lot of announcements as well. So I want to dive into just a couple of updates there. For the part one that I mentioned from Arfa, there is a great comprehensive guide. I'll put the specific link to this one in chat. I'll put some other links to our releases and items all up. But this is a great detailed blog post if you haven't had a chance to look, that goes through and guides you through agentic AI with Semantic Kernel. And so a couple of other items that I do want to highlight with MCP Server, as we've mentioned in some previous blog posts and have been working hard for .NET, there are a number of samples out. But the big announcement for this week that I want to highlight is within Python, we also have MCP Server and with plugins both available as well. And so there is a detailed demo from the team on this morning's recording as well, but wanted to highlight all the goodness that's coming out with MCP in both .NET and Python from the semantic kernel side. The one other item that I wanted to highlight that Evan's touched on, and Evan, I can turn over to you on the Python side, but we have GA'd our agent framework. And so there are a number of updates for with single agents that are now out. There'll be some additional updates that we'll be having as we get closer to build, but we are really excited to be able to get it to a GA state as well.
Yeah, and the Vic asked a question. It says, if possible, could you go through the main changes of the GA release of Agent Framework? Yeah, I can touch on that. I mean, I think the biggest changes are really around that thread management. So, and I would say probably even more for the chat completion agent. I mean, that's the one that we are right now considering at GA. The underlying abstractions for the agent, base class, or abstract base class in Python, those are locked in. But the thread aspect is, and I can find a link to our Learn docs too after I say this, but the thread aspect is just a way for us to create an abstraction around for the chat history agent. It's a chat history thread. So right now it's just wrapping a chat history. And if you can have a stateless interaction with an agent if you want. Kind of may sound funny to have a stateless interaction, but some people just want to be able to ping an agent with simple questions and not carry on a conversation and have previous context needed. And so if you don't pass in a thread, you will just be talking to a model and it won't have any recollection of any previous questions you asked. But what happens if you don't pass in a thread is we actually create the thread for you underneath and we return it as part of the agent response item. So that's another change as part of the common agent invocation API is that now we're not just returning a chat message content, we're returning an agent response item which houses a chat message content, and it includes the thread if you want to continue the context to further invocations. And so in .NET, there's some really nice trick where you can kind of give an implicit cast to a chat message content. And so you could just use it in the same sense as it was before. The response would look like a chat message content. In Python, we try our best with to wrap that and give people the ability to use the response.items or response.content when printing a string. But there there is an explicit type return as agent response item. And so it houses that thread. Again, for server-side agents like Azure AI Agent or OpenAI Assistant Agent, um, that kind of thread concept is probably more familiar because we required you to create a thread. Instead of adding messages directly to the agent via add chat message, we put a deprecation tag on those methods because we want you to pass in any context you need as messages um, to the invocation, the API. So get message in Python or invoke stream now takes messages and not just a message. So you can pass in a list of chat message content, a list of string, and we even found that you can the agent may have enough context already just based on the instruction or picking up a previous thread. You don't even have to send a message. You can just pass in none. And so that it can pick up what it had previously and pass something back. So those those are kind of the changes that I see. I work on the Python SDK, and so I'm more familiar and can talk to the Python side, just that we moved everything to keyword arguments. And so you have to explicitly pass in keyword arguments. And I think that covers it all. And I see links in the document or in the chat about, yeah, we've updated our framework documentation, trying to call out all this stuff. Again, as always, feedback is appreciated. If you go through things and things don't make sense or you want to see more examples, we have lots of code samples and things. One other call out. We we understand that developers need to see what is going on before the final answer is kind of sent back to the caller. So for example, if I'm invoking a tool, let's say the tool is getting the weather for me as kind of the canonical example we can use. I may want to see what function was called, what the arguments were, and what the function result was. As part of this latest agent abstractions, we're returning just the answer. And so if you ask the question, hey, what's the weather in New York City? You'll get back an answer, the weather in New York City is sunny. But if you want to see what was called, you can pass in an on intermediate message callback. And if you hook up to that, you will then get callbacks that you can handle about the message types. And then you can start to build the picture of what the messages were, the underlying content types. You'll get to see the function call content, the function result content, and so on. So that's covered in the documentation. I know it's covered in Python. I don't know if it should be there in .NET, but just please note that as for all agents, you can now pass in this callback for both invoke, streaming, and get response. Get response will actually just return the last response. So for invoke and invoke streaming, you can do this. But important to note that to get the full picture, please use the callback. I think that's the last thing I can say. I could return it to you, Sophia.
Yeah, thank you so much, Evan. I
Yeah,
really
that's
appreciate you going through that in detail. Vic, did that answer all your questions? I was just looking through chat if you had, it looked like a question on multi-agent.
yeah. So just to following up on that. So the question that I have is we do have filters as well in the past. I don't know, the callback and the filters after you sort of before you sort of intercept, if you will, the response. How does that sort of play a role? Do we
Yeah,
still use
good question.
filters to modify things, or has that changed? And also the
So
multi-agent stuff that I have sort of in there, but I think you've sort of covered that. Yeah.
I think you, Vic, you work in primarily in .NET, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, so I can speak to Python. I want to say that it's working in .NET, but I also don't want to say something that's not true. So I literally just did this yesterday in Python for server-side agents. For chat completion agent, the filters should still work just as they do because it uses the underlying chat completion APIs. For Azure AI Agent or OpenAI Assistant agents, there's a little trickiness there because the server requires the run to be finished. So I can't just jump out of the context that we're in and return the function result that is without finishing the full run. And so you can still use a filter. You can provide the filter. You can, have the auto invocation filter and change things as you need to and provide different function results. But you should be cognizant that you're still going to get a next message back where the LLM puts its natural language spin on it. And so that requires a little bit extra work from the caller to handle it in the sense that maybe you discard that or you just you don't use it as part of your processing. You will have the function result though, and so you can use that to form some message as you need. I would double check it on .NET. I'll sync with the .NET side just to make sure that that is true, because otherwise you can provide the callback as another portion of it, and you'll be getting kind of the same response. That's how you'll hook into that function result content to get the modified function based on the filter. So I just want to say that in Python, I know it's that way, so I'll double check for you for .NET. Around the multi-agent, um, the next push is multi-agent right now, and so we're actually just literally diving in right now. The previous meeting to this is working on the multi-agent patterns and improving that because there's still work to do with the shared agent runtime between AutoGen and Semantic Kernel. I'll just say for now, since we're in the thick of it, is just stay tuned, please, over the next few weeks. That's the latest push.
Yep. That's brilliant. Thank you. Okay, Evan.
You're welcome.
Thanks so much, Evan. Yep, we'll definitely have more updates from our product side that will be coming, so definitely stay tuned for our blogs and as we get further releases out as well. Aaron, I saw your question around observability. I've linked to some of our documentation. There are some really good samples within the repo as well, but if you do have additional questions, feel free to reach out. Happy to dive in further. Are there other questions that folks have, other things that you're either working on, would love to chat about, or other questions as well? We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I missed the conversation about multi-agent earlier. Just regarding to multi-agent, I know AutoGen can do that. Semantic Kernel can also do that. So we are exploring a potential use case for multi-agent. Just wondering what's the suggested approach for that? Should we use AutoGen or should we use semantic kernel? Like in which case should we use like one over the other?
Yeah, great question, Danny. We're partnering really closely with the AutoGen team. There'll be two blogs after I'm done speaking. I'll link to in chat as well. But we're partnering very, very heavily with the AutoGen team moving forward to be able to have shared run times, be able to have Magentic one, be able to run. But the sample for I'll be able to share from our blog also has for 0.2 how you can be able to have that similar experience across both. How I would recommend to approach is we're going to be partnering very closely, but our AutoGen team will be staying a research team. And so they're working on latest and greatest cutting edge. And so if you're wanting to try out the art of possible with multi-agent, AutoGen is a great place to go and do testing. But in terms of production ready environments, Semantic Kernel is production ready. We have a lot of the security pieces that are baked in. We have support from channels like this and other mechanisms that we're onboarding to as well. And so if you're looking to go ahead and deploy multi-agent to a production environment or for customers, it really would be to come and use Semantic Kernel, but to be able to have AutoGen for your testing, to be able to explore the art if possible, just know that the two teams are partnering very closely together and you'll get very shared capabilities as well.
Yep. All right. Cool. Got it. All right. Thanks.
Perfect. I'll link to those blogs as well in chat. I see we have a hand up. Dimitri, we'd love to hear from you.
Hey, I have a question. So I'm looking for example of project to do deep research, basically multi-agents using RAC customer data. So using Azure Search. Is there any examples? Working examples?
I'm sorry, Dimitri. I missed
So basically, we have
the beginning part of that.
data in Azure Search.
Yeah.
RAC vectorized.
Yeah.
And we want to make deep research with multiple agents. There is an example how to use semantic kernel for this.
We don't have an exact deep research style example yet. Are you using .NET or Python for semantic kernel?
We have C#. We use
C#?
Python, but moved to C# right now.
Okay. In Python, we just put out a sample called plan and execute, and Sophia showed that at the beginning of the slide on one of the releases. But given that the process framework is pretty similar between Python and C#, I can get a link for you, and you could have a look at how you could use the process framework to break down a task and have it go and search. The only difference is that I'm using the OpenAI responses agent to do that because it provides the web search functionality. Otherwise, we'd have to go and implement, which we don't really have right now, a web search based on some other components. But you could have a look
to make the external just against the
just
customer
Azure AI
data.
search. Yeah,
Yeah,
then
we
you
need
could
just against AI.
you could either use an Azure AI agent, which has AI search functionality, or you could use you could bring your own AI search into a plugin with a chat completion agent or something as part of that. I'm trying to think. We have an Azure AI agent with AI search example I could link to. I think in Python. I don't know if I know in Python. I don't know if it's in .NET though.
It's fine.
But it's
fine with Python.
very similar. I think that you could have a look at that, and then I'll send you the process example too. The reason why the process framework is good is just because you're giving it Rails kind of to work on. It's event based. You know, once you finish the current step, you can move to the next step. And so in a deep research style scenario, I think it would be better than just give a task to an agent and say, go do this, because it'll come back. It may not satisfy, the requirements you have. But you can go and send out these agents in the process framework and go and have them get the information and come back, have another step that actually makes the report, have a kind of a proofreading step, iterate back and forth until it's good, and then produce your final report as an example. if needed, we can connect offline too, and I can kind of help guide you a little bit more if what you look at kind of doesn't make complete sense.
Okay, and is it like offline version or it's like streaming? Like how it works, how it's like from user perspective?
Yeah, well, it's not streaming right now, but it would be, you would initiate the process however you want. You could initiate it from an agent if you really wanted to, or you kick it off via an API or something like that. And then it would go off and you would need some sort of, UI component to say something is happening. But yeah, the process framework is still under development. That's a push we're making along with multi-agent, and again to use the shared runtime between the end process and then the distributed runtime. And so there is work being done there, but we can sync more if you want, just so I can help you understand
Okay,
how it would work
sounds
and the
good.
differences. Yeah.
Thank you, Iman.
Yep.
Great, thank you so much for the question. Other questions folks have? I'm just looking through chat.
Yeah. So Paul talks about wanting to see the merging of runtime. I can tell you that that's in progress, both for Python and .NET.
Yep.
Trying to, we're working in a repo and working closely with the AutoGen team to get the abstractions. I've used the abstraction and kind of a proof of concept on the Python side to run up in process runtime. It's based on this, excuse me, the single threaded agent runtime that AutoGen did, and so we're able to run it. Now looking at how can we support it in kind of a distributed sense. We currently offer Dapper for .NET and Python, looking at Orleans or other support for distributed. We don't want to just throw something out there as kind of a half-baked solution and then stumble through it. And so we want to make sure that the abstractions we provide are strong and robust, even though we're still experimental and working through it. We just don't want to put something out and break people, week to week. And so spending time there with the team, but I would say, stay tuned, and we'll have more definitely to report by this next session, and in the coming weeks in the US office hours as well.
Perfect.
And I would
Paul, I see
say,
your oh, go for it.
sorry, I just want to say one more thing to comment. However, we have a mix of AutoGen and there's a runtime concept in AutoGen. Yeah, that's exactly right. So like it'll look probably pretty familiar. But again, we want to create these patterns for the user, and so they don't have to get down to the nitty gritty nuts and bolts. And so that's part of the agent, the multi-agent push that we're doing right now to improve, bring in that concept, allow people to run AutoGen agents in Semantic Kernel, but also run Semantic Kernel agents, have all these great patterns out of the box, but provide the developer support so they can go and build what they need to as well. So a lot happening. And so, yeah, I would just say we're, as I've said before, we're in the thick of it. And so we'll have more to report soon.
Thank you so much, Evan, for going through that. Paul, are there any follow-up questions or anything from your end? Would love to hear more. Really appreciate you sharing about your experience as well.
No real questions at the moment. We'll probably, I'll contact probably yourself in the group, async to sort of provide more detail.
Yeah, absolutely. Please feel free to reach out if you have other questions or other items. Always happy to dive in and help.
Thank you.
Great. Other questions folks may have. Vic, I see your question. Chat. Do you mind coming off of me? We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, sure. So with pay-as-you-go Azure OpenAI, currently, my understanding is that it's not possible to get stats on, the cache token. So I'm talking about the 4.0 model, and probably the mini as well. And if you go to the Foundry stats, that's the metrics that are available are only for pay the reserve units or the PTUs. So I was just wondering if anyone here has any kind of workaround that we can use with potentially with SK or observability kit that we have that can capture those cache tokens. I don't know if there's something that you come across. And Danny probably, I don't know if Danny is still on here, can probably provide some additional context there as well.
Yeah, thanks, Vic. Yeah, Dave, if there's any additional context, I know this has been something that's
Yep.
come up from other customers in the past. Would love to hear about your scenario, but it is something that we are aware of. But Danny, anything else from your end of what you're
No, it's
experiencing?
it's great. It's great that Vic brought this up. I completely I kind of missed it. So we are trying to just get to understand like hey the percentage of cache tokens that we are using. And we can get it from the normal metrics in Azure, but when we go to the AI portal, it doesn't show it. There's a workaround at the moment, but can we just get everything in? Like we not just get all the data, all the insights from one dashboard. It would be good if we can get that from the AI portal as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Danny. I really appreciate your insight. It definitely is a issue that's come up, and I can take this back to the Foundry team as well. I know that this has been something top of mind, and so it's definitely one that I can take up and bring back to them. Just looking through chat, are there other questions that folks have? I'd love to hear from you. If there aren't any other questions, I'll stay on for a couple more minutes in case folks are typing or there's other scenarios they'd like to share. But if there aren't any other questions, we'll go ahead and end our APAC monthly office hours. I do want to thank everyone for joining in and for all of your feedback, questions, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. If you do have questions before our next monthly sync, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. We use GitHub discussions and go through and triage on a daily basis as well. And so we'll get back to you there if there are questions that come up. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.